It is quite something to switch on the television or scroll through social media and see a version of your culture that you barely recognize. For many Black people, this is a daily reality. The story often told is a very specific, narrow one. We see a world dominated by street crime, where the soundtrack is exclusively drill or grime music, and the main emotional note is trauma. It's a powerful narrative for sure. It's dramatic, it's gritty, and it sells. But this constant repetition paints an incomplete and frankly exhausting picture. It suggests that this is the sum total of the Black experience, a life defined by struggle and a very particular aesthetic. This isn't to say that these stories aren't real for some. They are. The experiences of poverty, crime, and systemic struggle are valid and deserve to be heard. The problem arises when this single story becomes the only story. It's like describing the entire United Kingdom by only ever talking about London's financial district. You'd miss the rolling hills of Yorkshire, the vibrant arts scene in Glasgow, and the quiet coastal towns of Cornwall. By focusing so relentlessly on one slice of life, the media creates a powerful stereotype that is incredibly difficult to shake, one that shapes perceptions both outside and inside the Black community. This narrow framing has enormous consequences. It flattens a diverse, multifaceted culture into a two-dimensional caricature. It creates expectations and assumptions that are projected onto every Black person, regardless of their individual life or background. People start to believe that this is what it means to be Black. It informs how teachers interact with Black students, how employers view Black applicants, and even how police officers engage with Black citizens on the street. It's a heavy burden to carry, having to constantly push back against a narrative that was written for you, but not by you. The result is a cultural blind spot of epic proportions. The world misses out on the sheer richness and variety that Black culture has to offer. They miss the joy, the innovation, the intellectualism, and the everyday normality. They miss the Black scientists, the tech entrepreneurs, the classical musicians, the countryside farmers, and the quiet suburban families. When the lens is so tightly focused on a single, often negative aspect, everything else is left in the shadows, unseen and uncelebrated. It's a profound disservice not just to Black people, but to everyone who is being fed this incomplete and misleading story. Let's be clear about something fundamental. There is no single Black place. The Black diaspora is a vast and global tapestry, woven with threads from every corner of the earth. We are talking about communities in the Caribbean, North and South America, Africa, and Europe. Each of these places has its own unique history, language, and cultural traditions. A Black person from Lagos, Nigeria, has a different cultural context from someone from Kingston, Jamaica, or from Brixton, London, or from Atlanta, Georgia. To lump everyone together under one monolithic Black culture is to ignore this beautiful and complex global reality. Within this global community, there exists every level of social and economic life. The media's focus on poverty and struggle often obscures the long-standing existence of educated, middle-class, and upper-class Black communities. These are families where academic achievement is the norm, where professional careers in medicine, law, and engineering are pursued, and where traditions are built around things other than survival. These communities have always been here. They have built institutions, created wealth, and contributed to society in countless ways. Yet their stories are rarely given the same primetime slot as stories of hardship. It's a strange paradox that even with education and professional success, Black individuals cannot simply escape the stereotypes. In fact, climbing the social or corporate ladder often brings new forms of prejudice. Microaggressions can become more frequent as you enter predominantly white spaces. You might be the only Black person in the boardroom, carrying the weight of representing your entire race. There's a constant low-level anxiety known as stereotype threat. The fear of confirming a negative stereotype about your group, which can ironically lead to underperformance. It shows that class is not a shield. The stereotypes are pervasive and stick to you regardless of your bank balance or degree. This reality challenges the simplistic idea that social mobility is the ultimate antidote to racism. It suggests the problem is not a lack of black success, but a societal refusal to see it or accept it without caveats. Black professionals often find themselves living in two worlds, the world of their achievements and the world of other people's perceptions. They must navigate spaces that were not designed for them, constantly proving they belong. This is a crucial part of the modern Black experience that is almost entirely absent from the mainstream narrative, a story of resilience and navigation in a world that still judges by skin color. The old stereotypes we see on screen are now finding a new, more insidious home inside the digital brain of artificial intelligence. Researchers have discovered a chilling trend of covert racism in AI models. These systems, trained on vast amounts of human text from the internet, have learned to associate African American English with negative traits like being ignorant or lazy. The bias isn't explicitly about race, but about dialect, which is a clever way for old prejudices to survive in a world that claims to be colorblind. The AI doesn't say, "I am biased against Black people," it simply produces biased outcomes. The real-world consequences of this are terrifying. In simulations, AI models were more likely to recommend a guilty verdict, or even the death penalty for a defendant if their statement was written in African American English. They were also less likely to match speakers of African American English with high-status jobs. This is not some distant sci-fi problem, this is happening now. These bias systems are being used in hiring, in the justice system, and in loan applications. They are laundering old-fashioned prejudice through a filter of supposedly objective technology, making it harder to spot and even harder to fight. The machine is just reflecting the biases we fed it. This digital bias is a mirror of what happens in the human world, particularly in the workplace. Black professionals, especially Black women, face a minefield of stereotypes. The angry Black woman trope is a classic example, where expressing any form of passion, frustration, or assertiveness, emotions considered normal for others, can be penalized. Black employees are often held to a higher standard, a phenomenon sometimes called the black tax, where they have to work twice as hard to get half as far. Your very appearance can be scrutinized, with natural hairstyles like braids or locks historically being deemed unprofessional, forcing people to change who they are to fit in. These barriers are persistent and harmful. They don't just hurt feelings, they actively stall careers and limit potential. Despite making up a significant portion of the workforce, the number of Black leaders at the very top of major corporations remains shockingly low. It highlights a systemic issue that goes beyond individual attitudes. It's about the culture of our institutions and the hidden biases baked into their structures, whether those structures are made of people in a boardroom or code in an algorithm. The fight for equality is now being waged on these new complex fronts. To counter these narrow narratives, we must actively seek out and celebrate the true diversity of Black success. Think of Dr. Mae Jemison, the first African-American woman to travel to space, a physician and an engineer. Consider Sir David Adjaye, the brilliant Ghanaian British architect who designed the Smithsonian National Museum of African-American History and Culture. Look to the world of business, where figures like Oprah Winfrey and Tyler Perry have built media empires from the ground up, telling their own stories on their own terms. These are not exceptions, they are examples of a vast and often overlooked reality. The richness of Black culture extends far beyond the confines of stereotypes. It exists in the poetry of Amanda Gorman, the powerful verses of which captivated the world at a presidential inauguration. It thrives in the culinary arts, with chefs like Marcus Samuelsson blending Ethiopian, Swedish and American cuisines to create something entirely new and exciting. It resonates in the world of classical music with performers like Sheku Kana Mason, a young cellist who played at a royal wedding. These individuals are not defined by struggle or street culture. They are defined by their talent, their passion, and their immense contribution to the world. The harm caused by limited portrayals is profound. It fosters ignorance and prejudice, creating a world where a Black teenager is more likely to be seen as a threat than a future scholar. It damages the self-esteem of young Black children who rarely see positive, relatable versions of themselves in the media they consume. It robs them of a full range of role models and possibilities, subtly telling them what they can and cannot aspire to be. This is a psychological weight, a burden that is carried every single day, and it is a direct consequence of lazy, repetitive storytelling. Ultimately, being black is not a monolith. It is not a genre of music, a style of dress, or a story of trauma. It is a global identity of incredible depth, diversity, and dynamism. It is joy, family, innovation, intellectual curiosity, and quiet everyday life. It is the past, the present, and the future. By challenging stereotypes, amplifying diverse voices, and demanding a more complete and honest portrayal in our media, our technology, and our institutions, we can begin to see black culture for what it truly is. A rich, complex, and beautiful part of the human story that is so much more than what we are shown.